Okay, now we're going to get to the good bit. Let's start assembling these bits and pieces. So the first thing we're going to do is put in the two sub-assemblies. Straightforward. And a couple of 4mm nuts to hold them in place. Let's just get that started. Yep, that looks good. I should say one thing is that I've cut off the shaft at 11mm above the top of the prop shaft on both engine sides. That's it. And do the same thing on this side. Okay, both of those engine mountings are now in and working. A little bit fiddly, but in. So the next stage is now to put the motors which sit on top of them. So these are the 380 motors, and we have a little bracket to hold them. And we'll just fit this straight in. It's a bit of a tight fit. And there are two very small, I think these are 2.5mm machine screws that hold them in place. And once I'll start these off. Yep. And then they will be ready to fit in. So I'll just go ahead and put these together and I'll come back to you. Okay, I have both the motors installed in their little brackets, and these will go inside, attached to that, and we now have to put on the collar that connects the motor to the shaft. So the shaft is 2.3mm. The prop shaft is 3mm, so this is a little adapter. Buy these on eBay, anywhere. So I'm going to put this one on here first and tighten those up. Oh, too tight. Yep, make sure it moves. And there's two grub screws at each end of this. Okay, so that's the motor with the adapter attached. And we'll do the same for the second one. These are now attached, and what we now have to do is slide these onto the prop shaft. Quite a tight fit here. Just fits in. Okay. Right, so I've now slotted this collar onto the prop shaft, and the little holes here line up. Now this is pretty fiddly getting these nuts through here. And a lock nut put on the back of it. So I'm not going to put you through the pain of that. I'm going to get all this done, and then I'll come back. Okay, I've got these motors wired in, or rather bolted in, and they're every bit as fiddly as I expected it to be. That took me probably an hour just to get those things set in right and tidied up and tightened up the two collars onto the motors. So now let's start putting the rest of the stuff in. So I'm going to start with the winch assembly, and you've seen this before, but on the back there's a slot which goes into a cleat, and then we screw it down. So we'll just put that, slide that in first into its cleat, and hopefully this will line up. Let's just, ooh. Okay, that's actually lining up, and I can screw that or tighten that nut. This is the blue nut that's on the wee lug on the side of the assembly, and that's tightened down in. Okay, so we're in business. Now, I will actually take this servo arm off at the moment, because when I do get around to switching it on, I will need to set the amount of throw on that, so I don't need that to be there at the moment. So I'm just going to take that off so I don't forget to take it off later. Okay, I will put that off. Right, I'm just going to leave that hanging there, and I'll put the nut somewhere that I hopefully will remember it. I'll find it. Right, okay, so that's the winch in. So the next thing to put in is the anchor well lid, and of course in this case the anchor well goes, the anchor line goes over the top of this and then down the center. So let's get it down the center first of all. This is 2mm polyester and the hole is 3mm, so it should go down. And it has, right. So all I'm going to do is just put a little figure of 8 knot at the bottom of that, stop it pulling back through, and we're in business. Now, this one has the silicone rubber seal around it, so hopefully that'll all just hold in place. Okay, and now we will put this into its mounting. Now I know this is going to be a tight fit. That's it, and we'll push that down into place. And there are 3 more of these knobs that will hold this in place, so I'll just get them started. Miracle of miracles, they all line up. If they don't line up for any reason, you can do 2 things. You can of course elongate the hole, but the other thing you can do is you can move the actual heat inserts just by heating them up again and moving them slightly one way or the other. And that does work as well. Right, okay, just tighten those up, all 3 of those up. Okay, so we have everything in now bar the electrics. So that's the last thing we're going to do, is get the electrics in and get it and connect everything together. Okay, time to start on the electrics. Now we have a little bracket which will just clip into the main body, which will do that in a second or two. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is push a bit of Velcro onto it, so that all of the electronic speed controls and the receiver are just going to be held on by Velcro. Makes it easier. Now, in fact, these have been salvaged out, all these bits have been salvaged out of a previous version of the Mark, so they all have a little bit of Velcro on the back of them. So what have I got here? I've got three cheap 20 amp electronic speed controllers, ESCs, one for each of the motors, and the third one for the winch motor. Now, we've got to be a bit careful with these. The three wires going to the receiver, the middle one there, the red one, the power one, is only required on one of these. So for the other two, we need to take out the red one from the plug, so it doesn't go into the plug. So I've just turned it back and pulled it out. There's plenty of videos on YouTube to show you how to take that center one out. So there's only one red power lead from this one, and the other two have the red power lead removed. Okay, so there's only one of these providing power to the receiver. Okay, so the other thing, of course, is the receiver. This case, it's because I'm using a FlySky. It's a FlySky IA6 6-channel receiver, and I've had to make up, I should say, a couple of custom a power loom here first of all. So what I have here is, because my wherever it is battery has a Dean's plug on it, I have, or a Dean's socket on it, I have a Dean's plug, and I've wired it in so that it's split three ways to power the three electronic speed controls. So Dean's plug to the three, these are the female ends of that. And the other power lead the other custom lead that you have to make up is, this is the power going to the winch motor, and coming from the ESC. But what we've done here is, on the positive side, I've split it. So it comes from here and goes up to here, comes from here, goes up to here, and this is to go onto the micro switch, so that it goes through the micro switch normally when the winch is running, but when we want the power to be switched off to the winch, it will go through the micro switch, and that will break the power at that stage. Okay, right. So let's get started. Now, the first bit is, all I'm really going to do is I'm going to mount these on this, and the on-off plug, just stick it through here and turn it round so it plugs in. It just sits into this gap. Gap should be just the right size, not more. And the same thing with the second one. And put it through that. And the third one for the winch, and we'll put it through, and it'll sit there, and then this whole lot will go into the body in a minute. And the receiver, I'm just going to put at the end here. Okay, so basically that's them all mounted. What I will do is, I'll not do it on the video, but I'm going to drill 3 little holes and put a screw through each of these just to hold these on-off switches in place. And then this just goes into the Mark, and this bracket slots in. So taking these ESCs one at a time, there's the 2 power leads. One will go to the motor and one will come from the battery power lead, which I'll put in a second. And the third wire coming out of them is the signal wire that goes to the receiver. Now there's a particular order to do these things in, and the starboard motor goes to channel 1, the port motor ESC signal wire goes to channel 2, and I'll show later on how we configure those in the transmitter so that we get differential steering from these two. The only other thing that we will be using in the receiver is for the winch motor itself. It's going to be powered from here, and that's going to come. The winch itself is going to be going to the signal for the winch is going on to channel 5, because that channel 5 in the transmitter, which I'll show you now. Channel 5, we're going to put to this switch here, switch C. It's the only one that's a 3-way switch, so I can have pay out, central, and haul in. All the others are just single pole switches. So that one, channel 5, and we're going to make switch D or switch C channel 5, and that will be the winch controller. And the last one is the servo. Sorry, not that one. My apologies. The ESC signal will go into channel 5, and the last thing is this winch here, or this servo here, which is actually a servo, which is the thing that switches, that drops or connects the things together. That's going into channel 6. So channel 6 will be the one that locks the anchor in place or drops it. So I'm going to get on and connect these all together, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. Okay, we're all connected up, and I've put the battery in, and it's just held in by the 2 bits of bungee. It's a bit busy in here now, so if I do this again, I'm going to organize a better way of putting the battery in, because it's really fiddly to get it out for charging purposes and so on. But everything else is more or less ready. And what I will do next is we'll get this to the transmitter and get it sorted out. But effectively, one ESC to starboard motor, the second ESC goes to the port motor. This one goes to the winch via this little loom on the micro switch to switch the winch off when it's when the anchor is up. And this servo is also now plugged in, so everything going in plugged into the receiver, which is sitting here. So we're basically ready to rock. I will have to bind this to the transmitter, and there's a bit of setup in the transmitter to do, and we'll cover that in a short video. But otherwise, effectively, I've just got to tie the anchor ball in, and we're ready to go. Well, almost ready. There's one more small thing to do, and that is to get the lid ready. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The step for the mast is just glued in. It's designed in this way so we can print it that way up, and it doesn't take any extra time. So that's just glued in. The actual mast itself, now I've already stuck a flag onto the flag part. I've just stuck that on, and this then just clips in, and we'll swivel around. You may have to do a little bit of sanding to make sure that it moves okay. And I had to sand the bottom a little bit just so that it fits into the hole. So that's the top of our mark ready. And the 2 eyelets here, the 2 eyelets that you can see on the bottom here are just to put a little bit of retaining rope. I made this removable so I could fold it down for carrying it. There is one more very important thing to do, which is in the mark itself, where the rope goes over this pulley. When you drop the mark, when you drop the anchor down, this flies out quite quickly. So again, as we did here with putting a bit of sponge to stop this jumping out over the spool, we need a bit of sponge to stop this jumping out over that. And the way I do that is with a bit of sponge sitting on the top, but it's actually glued into the lid of the mark. So when that's glued in there, and this is then put onto the mark, that sponge then sits there and prevents it from jumping over the edge. So that's the lid, all ready to go, and just needs to be fitted down. We have put the rubber seal has already been put in around the edge. I don't need to go through that. It's just stuff down there, the 2mm silicone rubber. And then when you go to use it, you just screw it down, and that makes it watertight. So that's Rover ready to go.